Hi everybody, welcome back, and today we are going to be jumping back into this breeder bin. So an update from last time. If you were here, you remember we had waited 21 days as was previously reported, and if you look online, always people say 21 days when you're breeding, and that's when the cocoons hatch. However, that is incorrect when it comes to African night crawlers. The actual time, the length of time is 14 days. So I was lucky enough to have someone in the comment section give me the correct time and date of incubation for breeding African night crawlers. Really, it was invaluable advice, and that's why I love people leaving comments for me below. I'm just looking at this piece of paper, and there are cocoons all over this. So I'm just going to put this to the side. I will take this, I'll take all the cocoons off this in a little while. What I am going to be doing is I'm going to be using this bait tray method again. This is a smaller tray that should fit into here. It slides in, it's a bit tight, but I will get it down there. And I'm going to fill this with some bedding and worm chow, and hopefully these worms will come up. I haven't fed them in a few days, quite a lot more than a few days actually. So I'm really hoping that they'll really come through. I'm just a little concerned to see if they'll fit through these holes. I'm not sure. These are a little bit smaller. This is about 1/4 inch, no less even. So let's see. I'm not sure if it's going to work. I hope so, fingers crossed. I'm just going to give this a quick fluff to see how we're getting on here, and the worms are good. I'll just lift this up a little bit so you guys can see as well, and I'll turn it this way. I can see a whole bunch of cocoons in here. The main thing really for me in this attempt is to make sure that there's no baby worms, because we had left the previous breeder bin for 21 days and there were already hatchlings in the bedding. So the moisture level has dropped in this bin. Quite considerably. I'm not certain. No, there's cocoons. I was just wondering if there were as many cocoons in this as I saw last time, but it's all good. Okay, so that's them. I'm just going to give this a little shake so it's flat. And while these guys are just jumping back down again, I'm just going to prep this basket. So I have a bag of bedding that has been now sitting for a couple of weeks, a few weeks or no, and it's pre-mixed just peat moss, coffee grinds, and gypsum, agricultural gypsum. The moisture level was quite high. It's still quite high now. I'll bring it into focus in a second, into view should I say. There we go. So this is the bedding. The moisture level is quite good. I might add a little bit more to it, or maybe not actually, because it's wetter than that, so they'll be drawn to this regardless. Maybe once I've added some worm chow. So what I'm going to do now, I'll just put it here for the time being just so you can see it. I'll turn it sideways so there's a better view. Right, as this is not, as I'm not resetting this completely, there will be more bedding involved when, in 3 days, once we take these guys out. But that's 2 tablespoons of worm chow. I'm just going to mix it into this bedding. The last time when you saw me using this basket method, I had taped up the sides of the tray of the basket, and it caused me a couple of issues with the fact that the worms had tried to get between the basket and the tape and were sort of hiding out in there when I tried to pull them out. So to not have that issue this time, I'm not closing it at all. There we go. So this isn't pushed down yet either. I will add a little bit of moisture. Just thinking about it, I'm going to add a little bit of moisture to the top, just a little bit. not too much. I don't want it to seep down and create a wet base below because I want them to come up. So like I said, there was more moisture in the bedding, the fresh bedding, than there was in the bin below. That was kind of on purpose. I'm just going to push this down as far as it will go, which is around there, and that should be it. So that was pretty easy. This has been exactly 14 days. I'm not letting it run a single day over. Captain Matt did this method on day 21 of his operations. I'm just seeing if this works. If it doesn't, then I'll just, I'll do a if it doesn't, then I'll just do a regular method. I just want to check to see that we've hit that. Yeah, cool. So this is in nice and tight. It's all secure. I'm just going to leave this now and we'll check back in 3 days. So it's not been 3 days, it's been 2.5 days, and I'm back. I'm about to harvest these worms. Things have been happening in this basket here. I think this has worked. So I've got myself a fresh breeder bin. It's not very large. I don't need it to be very big. There's only 100 worms. I'm only going to put 1 gallon of bedding in here with some worm chow. Let's get to that first. So I would say there's probably around a gallon of bedding in here already, maybe a bit more. So a gallon would probably be around 4 of these buckets. There's 2. So I would say actually there's probably around more like 1.5 in that bottom part there, which is going to act as there. That's also going to come in here, but just we'll do this. There we go. So there's 2.5 buckets. It's about, and then obviously the other remaining bedding from where these guys have been coming up to is going to be added to this. The formula for African night crawlers specifically, if you're doing breeder bins for African night crawlers, is 100 worms to 1 gallon of bedding with 2/3 of a cup of worm chow mixed up. Put your worms in 14 days, not 21 like your red wigglers or your European night crawlers. African night crawlers have a shorter mating cocoon incubation period. So what's that then? So let's say if a cup weighs around 120 grams, 2/3 would be 80 grams. A tablespoon, so 80 grams of chow. A tablespoon is around 15 grams. So if you say a heat teaspoon is 20 grams, that would be 4 heat teaspoons. Okay, cool. So let's do that then. So 1, 2, 3, 4. I'll just put a little bit more just for good luck. And I'm going to spray this down right now. I want the moisture level to be quite high. You should use around 3 to 4 cups of water depending on your humidity levels. There is some moisture in this bedding already because it was been sitting around. So I'm probably going to add around a good 3 cups, I'm guessing this would be by the time I'm done with it. Maybe a bit less. Okay, that's that. I'll just put on a quick glove and give it a mix. If you haven't done so already, smash that like button and subscribe. More importantly, if you've got something to say, please drop it down in the comments below. You know I love to hear from you guys. Every time I ask, I get more and more people drop in messages. I really, really appreciate it. And it's really just, it's encouraging. Oops. It's encouraging. I'm really, really grateful for it. And honestly, it really does help with motivation to make more videos for you guys. I'm hoping that you're finding them helpful. So I've given it a nice toss. let's see what's going on down here. I'm just going to lift off this paper and you can already see, look at all those worms. That's amazing. Let's lift this up. I'm hoping there's no worms. Ah, a couple of stragglers. Let's just dump this in here first. You can't see under this, but there's a whole bunch of worms just dangling down below. Let's pull 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. I mean, 6 worms out of 100 is not bad. Considering I've only left it for 2.5 days. I could have given them a little feed and just waited until tomorrow. But I have quite a busy schedule tomorrow, so I just didn't want to leave it to chance. I'm just going to dust them off because I don't want to remove any, take cocoons over into the new bin. These guys look great. I'm just going to give them a quick wash. Okay, so no cocoons in there. Only a few worms left. Excuse me. Sorry, it is dusty as hell in this storeroom, and I am very sensitive. I know it sounds like such a snowflake thing to say, but every time I've just realised, every time I come in here now, I sneeze and my nose is runny, which is horrible. So let's have a quick look in here. While I've got your attention, I'll just lift this up. So these are the castings left over, and I'm hoping all of the cocoons, yep. Let's give it a good moisten, because the moisture allows us to see those cocoons a lot better, and it stops the soil from sticking to the cocoons. So I'll bring it closer. You can already see just cocoons everywhere, which is the whole point, obviously. Like, oops, hello, sorry. Look at this. Cocoon, 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 just everywhere, all throughout the system. And that obviously is what we want. Just make sure we've got no cocoons left on our things, on our gloves. So technically this is the end. I'm doing this after this video has actually ended, but I've slipped this in between the things to do the thing. I just thought of something. So obviously in here we've separated the worms, and the cocoons obviously are in the bottom here, which is amazing because there's just so many cocoons, so many cocoons everywhere. But then while I was tapping and cleaning out the basket, the trap, I saw the tiniest minuscule little wisp in there, and I thought to myself, well, if the incubation time is 14 days, I should be able to see some tiny worms in here. But of course I can't because I'm blind. But there you go. But literally this thing is jam-packed with cocoons everywhere. Oh, I think, yes, look, a baby worm. 2. So the one I saw was even smaller than this. There's another one right there on the edge of my finger that's more like the size that I saw. So yeah, 14 days goes to show. This was the bag where I had emptied the previous breeder bin and added some cardboard to it. The moisture level's great. I had to come in a couple of times and add moisture to it. I wonder how the worms are growing. That's for sure. There's a couple of worms, so those cocoons have hatched and there's worms growing in here, which is fantastic. So this is just going to be dumped straight in. I'll give this a proper clean and make sure there's no other little worms in here, but yeah, that's fantastic. That's what we like to see. Anyway, back to the main video. Let's bring this back over now, and what we're going to do is we're just going to try as best we can to get these guys in here without making too much of a mess. Look at the size of this bad boy. He's huge. He's almost the entire length of this bin. Oh, this isn't going to be big enough. Ah, you know what I did think about, if there's any cocoons stuck on the bottom of this. And can I see any here? Luckily not there. Any cocoons on the bottom of this? No. Come on, fella, you go down. Are you coming or going? Okay. I'll just move that over there. There we go. So, I must say, I think I might have compacted it a little bit too much, but they're in it, and maybe a little bit more moisture next time. I can tell that I compacted a little bit because the worm chow is in clumps, and this tub is definitely not big enough. I don't see any cocoons. That's a good sign. Now, I've never had worms crawl out of any of my bins before. Never. In all of the 6-7 bins, they've never crawled out before. So I'm just checking to see, just making sure that there's no cocoons in here, which I can't see. But even if there are, the incubation time doesn't start from today. The incubation time starts from 3 days ago, or 2.5 days ago. So whatever cocoons they've laid in this top bedding is fine. That can move across. I was just concerned about cocoons that might have been on the bottom of the basket that might have got dropped off, that might be ready to hatch, in the next day or two. That is something that I don't want. So first things first, I need to thank Captain Matt, because he's a bloody genius. Who'd have thunk it? If it wasn't for him posting that video with his mesh fabric, construction cloth, whatever it was, to take the worms out, I would have never have thought to do so. So that was a good one. And yeah, I mean, definitely me picking out 6 worms from the bottom of the other bin in comparison to distressing the worms and pulling out 100 at a time would have been an absolute nightmare. I'm going to give these guys another little douse, because that top bedding, which has gone on top now of this, was a little bit dry for my liking. So I'm just going to give it a nice wetting. I'm also trying to push that moisture down to promote the worms going down and sitting at the bottom until they get acclimatized to this new bedding. Luckily, that bedding on top has been for 3 days. They're cool with that. They came from the same base bedding in their original bin, which, because I've had it sitting around for a couple of weeks, I've been using the same peat moss mixture. So that's been fantastic. So now it's been, like I said, 2.5 days. So I'm not going to wait another 14 days before I do the same thing again. It's going to be 12 days or 11.5 days, whatever that is. And hopefully by then that process will continue. One thing for sure, I definitely need to sort my life out and get bigger tubs. This, my friends, is not going to cut it. Obviously, when they go back into the other black bin, that's fine. But if I want to breed on a much larger scale, I definitely need to get myself larger bins, hence putting in more worms to do the breeding at the same time. So, with that being said, thank you for watching. Again, hit that like, smash that subscribe, leave comments, ring the notification bell. You know what to do. Show your boy some love as always, and I hope you're good. See you soon.